Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. My name is Francisco Cantu, and I am back as I am on every Monday, ready to do a presentation, another live stream. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If this is something that you do every Monday, that you tag along and you ask your questions, then welcome back. Let me just give you a little bit of an overview of what the next 45 minutes to an hour are going to look like. And as we get started and wait for more people to come in, do let me know in the comments where you're watching us from, whether you are a parent, whether you are a student, or any other question that you might be wondering, because as is the case every week, I start off with a presentation. I give it a few minutes. Right now it's 7:16 Eastern time, and I use the first few minutes to welcome you all in, wait for more people to join, start asking your questions, tell me where you're watching from, and then I quickly do a presentation that I prepared for you all. Every week I prepare a different presentation, and I try to keep it as relevant, as topically relevant to whatever is going on in the world of college admission. So today, because it's the first live stream of the month, I'm going to be going over a college planning checklist for all of you parents and students out there. And I'm going to go over what you should be doing at every year. So it doesn't matter if your student is in middle school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of high school. I'm going to go over everything you should be doing during the month of April. So that's a little bit of a teaser as to what the presentation is going to look like. And then, as always, I will be ending the presentation with a Q&A session. So that's why I like to ask you all to let me know whether you're a parent or a student watching this, because at the end of the presentation, I always have my office hours per se, in which I go through the comments on both Facebook and YouTube, and I answer the questions as efficiently and as quickly as I can. And yeah, this is a way for all of you who maybe don't have access to the college counselor at your high school, or you have some questions that you want to get quickly answered. Well, that's an opportunity for me to help you all out. All right, so that's gonna come after the presentation that I'm gonna quickly go over in just a second. All right. So as I wait for more people to come in, just another set of housekeeping or reminders. Number one is to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and you have not already done so. You subscribe to Best College Aid USA. You'll get notified if you, whenever we go live for presentations like this or make short content videos that are not necessarily live streams. Yeah, subscribe. That will really help us reach our target audience and keep on making this live stream sessions. Number two, if you don't already do so, follow us on our social media platforms at Best College Aid USA, all across the board on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. All right. Another announcement that I'm going to go over before we start the presentation is, if you have not already done so, and let's say you go through this live stream and you ask your questions and you want to find even more resources or more content for you to know what the next steps are on your student's road to college, we do have a free training on the link in the bio, or in the description below this video. So if you're watching on YouTube, for example, this is the interface, I guess, the page that you're watching us from, and you go to the video description down below, show more. You can go ahead and click the register button right here, and it'll take you to the registration page. And all you have to do is put your contact information. You'll be able to watch the free training that I pre-recorded and edited and prepared for all of y'all. All right. So that's that on that. If you also have questions, comments, as I mentioned earlier, I have the ability to share them on the screen. So actually, let me make this a little bigger. So yeah, any comment that you make, I can share it. And when I get to the Q&A portion of the presentation, I'll be reading those out loud. All right. And the last set of reminders that I have for you all is that we are having a sale, a holiday Easter sale, and that ends in 7 days. And if you are interested, after watching this live stream, after watching the free presentation, if you'd be interested in getting more help or support for your students, that's something that you can certainly check out if you're interested in joining the full paid program. All right. So that is all the announcements that I had before the presentation. So let me go ahead and get started with the first live stream of the month of April. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, today, because it's the first live stream of the month of April, I'm going to be going over the checklist of items, tasks that you should be doing or that you should be taking care of during the coming days, the coming weeks, so that you are on the road to college. All right. So I'm going to start off very general, and then I'm going to get more and more specific, especially because this is going to be relevant to different degrees, or the takeaways that you're going to have are going to depend on whether you are the parent of a middle schooler or a sophomore, junior, or senior. So I'm going to try to be going over everything. All right. So the first thing that I want to share before we get started with that are some important announcements. Number one, if you're a member and you were not able to join our members only Q&A session from last week, we have those at the end of every month. Do know that inside the course, you can find the recording for that. So if you are a member of Best College Aid and you go to our curriculum, you can scroll down to the recording section all the way at the bottom, and you'll be able to see the Q&A sessions that David and I do. All right. So that's just something that I wanted to remind you all. As far as announcements, before getting started, second announcement is for our members. We're having an ACE lesson, so the Cambridge College Level Program. We are working on a lesson that we're going to be posting inside the course in just a second. And then the last one is what I already mentioned regarding the Easter sale, that we're having 60% off to join the full paid Best College Aid program, all right? Those were the quick little announcements that I wanted to share. And now we can get started with the checklist for you to be on top of the road to college during the month of April. All right. So first thing that I always recommend our parents to do during the months of spring is to start with a conversation, especially if they have students in 9th to 11th grade. This is going to be the catalyst, or this is going to be the first step towards everything that we're going to be speaking of later on. And that's going to get more technical, but it all starts with a conversation. So what should this conversation look like? Well, a lot of students don't know what they don't even know what they don't know. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that when a student, there are 3,500 universities in the United States, all right? And they offer different career programs. They're in different geographic locations. They are, if you've watched a lot of these live streams, you know that something that I always repeat is that not all schools are equally as generous. So it is important for you right off the bat to have a conversation with your student. And this is extra relevant for my 9th to 11th graders regarding what the family finances look like and how much they can expect to rely on you as far as financial support for traveling, whether there is some sort of familiar or personal circumstance that might lead them to only apply to schools in state, out of state. Again, every family is different. We've worked from families from all sorts of different backgrounds, but it is important to get those conversations out of the way sooner rather than later, because having a list of colleges, which is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit more later on, is the earlier you have that list, the better, because then you can take other steps like looking at common data sets for each particular university, be on top of early application deadlines. Having that list early on, the sooner allows you more wiggle room to do certain things as far as extracurriculars, as far as application strategy, as far as planning out your standardized test taking in such a way that will elevate the competitiveness of your application. Whereas if you don't know that you're going to be applying to a school until 2 weeks before the application is due, the amount of things that you could do to become an appealing candidate are way more limited, all right? So it all starts, and the reason why I wanted to start with this very basic step of talking to your student is because this is going to be the foundation for the next few steps. So again, if you have not already done so, be ready to talk to your students about the family's finances, how much they can expect from you in terms of financial contributions for their education, whether or not you support them going out of state, in state. Typically, with all of our students and with all of our parents, we recommend some sort of autonomy and letting them decide what they want to do, where they want to go. But again, every family is different, so having this conversation early on will be very beneficial. And number 3 is being very career focused in terms of making that college list, because one of the biggest mistakes I see students make, especially when they're 17, 18 years old, they will base a lot of their decisions regarding where they're going to be applying to college based on what the up and trendy school is right now, whether it's because of March Madness that's going on, or where their friends are going to be going, or with the girlfriend, the boyfriend, their significant other. while that can be some sort of factor, it shouldn't be the driving force. And knowing what if your student knows what they want to study, having that be front and center when making that list of colleges, super, super important, because the last thing you want to do is go to a university that may or may not be generous, but doesn't even end up offering the career path that your student wants to pursue. All right. So that is a perfect segue into the second step, or the second item that I wanted to talk about in this presentation, and that is making a comprehensive list of universities. Now, this will be a little bit more applicable for my 10th and 11th graders, but this is a whole subject, and inside the Best College Aid program, we go over this in depth, but I want to make sure that all of you watching this get a general idea as to what you should be doing in terms of making a college list. So number one, you start with your basic academic considerations, all right? GPA, SAT, ACT, and your extracurricular activities. That's usually those are the big three that a college will first look at. There are other factors such as demonstrated interest, such as character and personal qualities, such as the college interview. But for now, let's just start thinking about the GPA, SAT, ACT, and extracurricular activities. Why? Because these will be the main or some of the most important elements that will determine whether or not a school will be or should be in a student's reach, target, or safety schools. All right. So that's kind of what you should consider when compartmentalizing or dividing schools into a different category. But going back even further, the reason why I first started with having a conversation with your student and then make that list of colleges is because a student should have criteria, right? They should have geographic location. They should have career paths. They should have degree of generosity from the school. Because again, institutional aid is, yes, it's not all based on need. It can be based on, yes, very well on need, but also on merit. And not all schools have the same policies as far as how or how much institutional aid they provide for their students, or what % of demonstrated financial need gets satisfied by the university. So being aware of this, and if you have a conversation early on, you can sit down with your student and say, okay, we are only going to be applying to schools that satisfy over 85% of demonstrated financial need, okay? And all of a sudden, that list of 3,500 schools across the U.S. goes down a lot, and maybe there are only 1,000 schools. And then when you add the factor that they should also have an engineering program and be on the East Coast and maybe be a big public school, and now they can start adding in other considerations such as, do I want it to have a big sports culture, or do I want them to have a big Greek life culture or atmosphere, or a lot of extracurriculars, whatever the case might be. The whole point is to funnel down the list so that you go from 3,500 schools all the way down to 8 to 12 schools divided between reach, target, and safety schools. And the earlier you have this, especially during the months of April, because by the months of April, seniors already went through this process, but freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, if they have that list early on, especially in the month of April, then they can plan the next few months in terms of taking standardized tests, failing at them, or maybe not doing as well, but then having enough time to retake them, adjusting their classes to make sure that they're taking a competitive course load. Especially if you have a list early on, you can, as I mentioned earlier, look up a university's common data set and see what they value in an applicant, and then use that as a sort of guide to become as competitive of an applicant as possible. So it all connects. Having all these things clear in your head will be the main driving force and what we teach our students to do during this off-season month so that they're best prepared, all right? So that's why the second step was to take all the considerations that we've talked about between step number 1 and right now step number 2 with GPA, SAT, ACTs, and then use those as a basis to come up with a comprehensive list of reach, target, safety schools, and then make sure that they're all generous, that they all satisfy the criteria that your family might have. And then again, during the months of April, it's always nice to be aware of what's going on and seek personalized advice. And what I mean by personalized advice is every school is different. Every high school in America is different. Yeah, a lot of them share similarities in terms of Common Core and maybe the course load that they have to take, but the particularities of every high school, or the way in which an administrator at your high school works or operates, or their policies for doing transfer, for sending transcripts, or the ways in which your school might have two different teachers for AP Physics, and one might be more resonates better and teaches better to their students than the other one. So what I mean by looking for personalized advice is whether it's an older sibling who has gone through the process, whether it is a college counselor, which unfortunately in the US, the national average for amount of students per one college counselor is around 408 students. 408 students for one college counselor at the high school. So sometimes even if they have the best disposition, they just don't have the resources to talk one-on-one with every student plus their parents. But if you happen to be at a school where you do get the opportunity, the chance to speak with them, that would be a great starting point. A private college counselor, if you can afford one, typically they tend to go for very premium prices. But if that's something that your family is willing and able to afford, that's another great option. Our members use Best College Aid. They use our services, and we are that personalized advice for them. But whatever the case might be, again, an older sibling, someone who already went through the process at your high school, maybe goes to the same university you want to go to, the counselor at your school, private counselor, or through tuning in through these live streams with Best College Aid, asking your questions, watching the free presentation. If you're interested in joining with the 60% discount that we're having right now, the bottom line here is to not go at it alone. And if you are going to go at it alone, make sure that you are very on top of deadlines and very on top of application policies so that you don't end up missing out on money from scholarships at the federal, institutional, state, and private level, nor the application process that you send all of your documentation on time. All right. So that's what I wanted to finish the second tip with. And now I am going to move on to the last item that I want to talk about before moving on to the Q&A session. Again, if you have not already asked your questions, make sure to use either the YouTube or Facebook chat to ask them. But the last thing I wanted to talk about for you parents out there is to start planning for the summer. And now middle school and high school students might have to have a different strategy for what they should be doing on the summer. So first, I'm going to start with middle school students. When it comes to middle school students, when they are preparing for their summer activities or what they will be doing over the course of between May and August, it's always recommended that they focus on extracurriculars in terms of like their bang for buck. Why? Because among other things, and every college is different, every college might have different preferences, different priorities, but in general terms, when a college is evaluating a student's extracurricular activities, the two of the most important considerations or elements that they care about their students displaying or their applicants displaying is leadership and duration. So leadership is exactly what it sounds like, whether it's through an organization, a club, an after-school event, whether it's through the traditional route of having positions, titles attached to their names, so president, vice president, secretary, whatever the case might be. Those titles are ways to display leadership. Leadership can also be displayed through impact. So if you were in charge of a project or fundraising or whatever the case might be for a particular club, not just taking that participation and putting it on your resume, oh, I was in this club for 3 years, but rather I fundraised X amount of money or doubled recruitment for this club. You know, having tangible numbers attached to your membership that show your impact is a great way to display the concept of leadership. And then the other one is duration. Duration, how long have you been in an activity for? So the reason why I wanted to start this and this whole side rant about what a middle school student should be doing, well, it might be very much worth it to spend the summer before high school or between 6th and 7th or 8th grade, allowing your student to explore as many extracurriculars as possible, whether it's playing a musical instrument, after-school event, sports, summer camp, whatever the case might be. Why? Because if they weed out all of the activities that they're not interested in, that will allow them to start high school with a selected smaller roster of things that they are passionate about, and they can continue to pursue these activities all throughout their high school career. And having pursued those activities throughout the 4 years will display the concept of duration, but also if it's already something that they're passionate about, having impact again, through heavy involvement or through having some sort of position and title within the organization, it's going to become easier to display the other concepts of leadership. So by utilizing middle school years and formation years to weed out what they don't care about and only stick with what they do care about, debate, soccer, music, whatever the case might be, it sets them up to display those other two elements, leadership and duration, that colleges care about, all right? So that would be the approach for my middle school students. For my high school students, depending on whether they are in freshman, sophomore, or junior year, it might be a little bit different. But over the summer, what I would typically recommend for freshmen is, if they have not done what I just talked about in terms of extracurriculars, then I would certainly make sure that they utilize the summer to take care of that. For my sophomores and juniors, sophomores more so, I would start studying for your standardized tests, because you are going to be taking them at some point during your junior year. So if you're a 10th grader going into your junior year, then very much you should be focusing on those standardized tests. And the reason why people say, or why it's recommended to wait until between your sophomore and junior year to start studying, is because a lot of the material that you will be assessed on in these standardized tests, you don't learn until after you're done with 10th grade. Obviously, it depends by the school, and it depends on how advanced the classes that you're taking are. But this is usually prime time to start preparing for those exams. And there's a lot of resources out there online that you can use. You can download old exams. Our members from Best College Aid, part of their membership is access to study materials like the Kaplan Test Prep Plus. I know this one says 2021. We give them the latest version. They also get SAT study resources. They get discounts for crash course books. But whatever material you end up using, it is very important to not only take those practice exams and start studying through these resources, but then also always grade your attempts. Again, whether it's you downloading the PDF, the official PDF from the ACT organization, or the SAT from previous years, printing those out, taking a chunk out of a Saturday to take it under emulated testing conditions. So no phones, no screens, just a timer, and a granola bar in your stomach, as if you were taking the exact exam. And then you prepare for it, and you assess how you performed. There's this grading sheet in the back. Then oh, okay, I was great. If I took the ACT, I was great in science, math, and reading and writing. I didn't do that well. Okay, so that's your study guide for the summer before your next attempt. And then finally, for my juniors out there, the summer you should spend doing what I was talking about earlier, as far as making your list of colleges so that you can start the application process. You can start looking at and as far as like what I was talking about with common data sets, that's something that you can start doing if you know that you want to go to a particular school. If you are a freshman in high school and you want to go to the University of Florida, or you want to go to Emory University or University of Pennsylvania, whatever the case might be, one thing that I very much recommend, if you have those no-brainer schools that you're definitely going to apply to no matter what, look up the name of the school and the words common data set. You're going to find the document that we've shared in these presentations many, many times. If someone in the chat wants to let me know what their student's top choice school is, and we can maybe do an exercise right here live. But if not, I'm just going to go through a hypothetical example. So you Google the name of the school, and then you put common data set. You find the latest file from the previous or latest admitted students class. Then you'll be able to see all of the information regarding that particular university's student population in terms of their average SAT, ACT. So that will give you an idea as to whether or not your current statistics are competitive. But also, it will have a section where it tells you the important considerations for applicants. So it will be a table that says SAT, ACT, GPA, college interview, and those will be the academic components. But then other non-academic components will be essay, demonstrated interest, character and personal qualities, and they will have other considerations. And then out of those sections, they will have kind of like a meter that says not important, considered, very important, crucial. And then it will tell you, okay, SAT scores, very considered in this particular university. Interview, not considered at all. Demonstrated interest, not considered at all. And if you know that you want to apply to a particular school and you approach your freshman, your sophomore, your junior year of high school, knowing that, okay, this particular school really cares about my class rank and about my GPA, but maybe they don't put a lot of priority in, they're a test optional school, and I'm not a good test taker, so I don't have to worry so much about SAT or ACT scores, or vice versa. Maybe it's a school that cares a lot about standardized testing. So you want to make sure that you go into this process knowing what the colleges care about. And also, even if you see that you have a particular set of skills and you're particularly strong at certain subjects or at certain elements of what would compose or constitute a college application, and you are trying to go from your preliminary list of colleges, maybe after you do the initial search from what we talked about in step number one, you might realize that these two schools that you were both considering, try to decide if you were going to eliminate them from your preliminary list, and it's going to make your final list of 8 to 12 schools. Well, one of them really cares about SAT or ACT scores, and this other one prioritizes GPA more. Okay, well, maybe because I have a stronger GPA, I'll select university number 2 and maybe not apply to the other school that cares more about SAT or ACT scores, all right? So going about the process like that and understanding where you stand and what you should be doing on top of staying organized, not missing any deadlines. Well, those are the main things that I wanted to talk about in today's presentation before going to the Q&A aspect of the live stream. So that was it for my presentation. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to open up the chat for any questions you might have. You can do so on either YouTube or Facebook, and I will be sharing the questions below the screen. And while I wait for people to ask any questions they might have, I do want to invite you all to register. Again, if you find value in this live stream, do know that I'm going to be back on Instagram and TikTok tomorrow at 7:15 p.m. as I am every Tuesday. So Mondays is Facebook and YouTube. Tuesdays is Instagram and TikTok, 7:15 at Best College Ed USA. But let's say you watch these live streams and you ask your questions, but you still want to know more, or you're still a little lost as to where you should start with your student. Well, we do have a free training that I finished scripting and recording and editing and writing a few weeks ago. And that presentation is completely free for you to register to. It's titled The 6 Strategies to Help Your Children Get Accepted to College with Scholarships. So this, as you may have noticed, this presentation was a little bit focused. It was very specific to what you should be doing in the months of April. Nonetheless, this training that I'm talking about, that I'm going to share you how to access, again, if you're watching on YouTube, you go to the description below the video, and there's a link to go to the registration page, and you should be able to register for free. Anyways, this presentation in particular is more of an overview of the process, whereas today was very specific to the month of April. This presentation is more of a general overview of the entire process, all right? So do know that that resource is out there. And let's say, I always like to be very transparent about this presentation. At the very end, so the presentation is around 50 minutes. The last 10 to 8 minutes, I do talk about the Best College Aid program, about the full paid Best College Aid program, which is the service that we provide for students who want to learn more beyond this office hours that we have weekly basis. We assess them and we teach them how to go through the entire college application process from as early as middle school all the way to when they graduate from high school. And we are having a 60% off holiday sale for Easter, and that will be ending in a week. That will be ending April 10th. So again, if you watch this live stream, if you watch the free training in the link in my bio, and you want to learn more beyond what you have learned or will learn in those presentations, that is another option that you should take advantage of, again, because we're having that 60% off. And if not, I will be back here as I always am on Mondays and Tuesdays, on Instagram and TikTok on Tuesdays, and Facebook and YouTube on Mondays, all right? So I believe that was it as far as what I had to share with you all. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to assume that everything was explained really comprehensively and correct, so you have no questions. And I'll be back here tomorrow. Thank you so much for your attention, your engagement, and I will see you next week. Don't forget to check out the presentation, the link in my bio. Goodbye.